The inspector. The inspector is the person who actually reads the instruction manual, twice. They're practical, grounded, and allergic to chaos. If life were a group project, they're the ones setting up the spreadsheet while everyone else is still figuring out what the assignment even is. They value order, rules, systems, routines. To an inspector, stability isn't boring, it's freedom. They know where things are, how things work, and what happens if you cut corners, because they've already checked 3 times. These are the people who balance the budget, fix the printer, and show up on time even when the invite was vague. But it's not just about rules. At their core, inspectors are loyal. If they commit to something, a job, a friend, a promise, they follow through, even when it's inconvenient. Some call them rigid, but inspectors would call it dependable. The downside? They can struggle when the world refuses to play by the rules they love so much. Sudden change? Last-minute improvisation? That's their nightmare. But give them a plan, a process, and some peace and quiet, and they'll quietly keep the world turning while everyone else is panicking. The campaigner. The campaigner is basically human caffeine. Walk into a room, and suddenly the vibes are louder, the jokes are faster, and you're somehow agreeing to go on a road trip at 2 a.m. with people you just met. These are the people who treat sleep as more of a suggestion than a requirement. They're idea machines, constantly brainstorming, constantly starting projects. Finishing them? That's optional. A campaigner's Google Drive is a graveyard of abandoned side hustles, half-written novels, and business pitches that sounded genius at 3 in the morning. But here's the thing. You can't stay mad at them. They're charming, infectious. They make you believe that, yes, you should quit your job, move to Bali, and start a kombucha empire. And even if it crashes and burns, you'll at least have a great story. The flip side? Chaos. The nurturer. The nurturer is the person who remembers your birthday, your dog's name, and that weird story you told them 3 years ago about getting stuck in an elevator. They're loyal, attentive, and always looking out for the people they care about. In a group, they're the quiet anchor. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one you can actually depend on. They thrive on responsibility. If something needs to get done, they'll take it on, even if it means staying up late to finish the work no one else wanted. Some people call them selfless. Others call them people pleasers. The truth is somewhere in between. They want harmony. They want others to feel safe. But sometimes that means they forget about their own needs. The downside? They can burn out from giving too much. But when balanced, nurturers are the steady heartbeat of any family, team, or friendship circle, quietly holding everything together while the world spins. The mastermind. The mastermind doesn't just play the game. They're 3 moves ahead, already planning how to win. Strategic, private, relentless. They live in their own mental war room, constantly running scenarios. While others react, they calculate. They crave improvement, precision, and control. To a mastermind, perfection isn't optional. It's expected. They're not interested in small talk or sugarcoating. They want systems, logic, results. That intensity can make them feel cold, even intimidating. But underneath is a drive to build something lasting, something that actually works. The danger? They can isolate themselves, convinced no one else can keep up. They might dismiss emotions as weakness, forgetting that not everything can be solved with a blueprint. But when a mastermind finds balance, pairing their ruthless vision with patience and humanity, they don't just succeed, they change entire worlds. The virtuoso. The virtuoso is the person who sees a locked door and immediately thinks, I wonder if I can pick that. They're hands-on, impulsive, and allergic to boredom. If there's a problem, they'll take it apart, mess with it, and probably fix it, or at least break it in a more interesting way. They live for the moment. Planning, schedules, that's prison. A virtuoso wants to dive headfirst into action, whether it's building something in their garage, booking a trip on a whim, or convincing their friends to try cliff diving at 2 a.m. The catch? Commitment is not their strong suit. They can be flaky, restless, and allergic to anything that feels repetitive. But the upside is that life with a virtuoso is never dull. They bring energy, risk, and a little bit of chaos. And sometimes That's exactly what a stagnant world needs. The artist. The artist moves through the world like life itself is a canvas. Quiet, gentle, and deeply sensitive. They see beauty where others see nothing. A crack in the sidewalk, a song half heard, the way sunlight cuts through dusty blinds. It all carries meaning. They live in the moment, following their feelings like a compass. To them, rules are suggestions, and conformity feels like suffocation. They'd rather paint outside the lines, literally or metaphorically, than march to someone else's beat. That freedom makes them creative, compassionate, and unpredictable. But it's not always easy being this attuned. Their emotions can swing hard, leaving them vulnerable to self-doubt or pulling away when the world feels too sharp. Still, when they open up, they bring color to everyone around them, turning ordinary days into something quietly extraordinary. The Mediator. The Mediator lives with one foot in reality and the other in a world only they can see. They're dreamers, idealists, and quiet warriors for what feels true and meaningful. To them, life isn't about climbing ladders or chasing trophies. It's about staying connected to purpose, to values, to the things that make your soul feel alive. They're compassionate to a fault, always seeing the good in people, even when it's buried deep. But that kindness can also trap them. They'll forgive too much, stay too long, or lose themselves in someone else's story. Their inner world is vivid and rich, but it can make the outside world feel heavy, even hostile. Still, when they channel that imagination into action, mediators inspire change. They remind us that the quietest voices often carry the deepest truths. The Thinker. The Thinker is the kid who took apart the toaster just to see how it worked. Analytical, curious, and slightly allergic to small talk, they spend more time in their head than anywhere else. For them, the world is one giant puzzle, and every question is another piece waiting to be solved. They thrive on theory, not what is, but what could be. They'll happily debate abstract ideas for hours, then forget to eat lunch because they got lost in thought. On the plus side, they're inventive and original. On the downside, don't expect them to remember where they left their keys. The Thinker's weakness? They can get so wrapped up in concepts that reality feels like an afterthought. But when they balance their endless curiosity with just enough practicality, they're the ones who rewrite the rules the rest of us live by. The Dynamo. The Dynamo is pure adrenaline in human form. These are the people who treat speed limits as suggestions and think responsibility is just a funny word adults made up. If something looks risky, they're already halfway through doing it before anyone else has finished saying, "Bad idea." They live for the thrill. Fast cars, big bets, last-minute decisions. To them, the safe option is the boring option. They're magnetic, reckless, and somehow always have a story that starts with, "So there I was," and ends with, "And that's how I wound up in the ER." But beneath the chaos, dynamos are problem solvers. Put them in a crisis, and they'll find a way out while everyone else is panicking. The problem? Stability feels like a trap. They're always chasing the next high. Still, when the world needs someone bold enough to jump first, the dynamo is already in the air. The Performer. The Performer was basically born with a spotlight overhead. They walk into a room and instantly become the main character, whether they planned it or not. Loud, fun, and effortlessly magnetic, they thrive on attention the way plants thrive on sunlight. These are the friends who'll convince you to go out on a Tuesday, spend too much money, and end up dancing on a table, and somehow make you feel like it was the best decision of your life. They're entertainers, charmers, natural mood boosters. But here's the catch. The party never lasts forever. When the music stops, performers can struggle with the silence. They hate boredom, avoid responsibility, and sometimes cover insecurity with charisma. Still, when they're balanced, they remind everyone around them that life isn't meant to be endured. It's meant to be enjoyed. The Debater. The Debater doesn't argue because they're angry. They argue because it's fun. For them, every conversation is a battlefield, and every opinion is an invitation to spar. They'll switch sides mid-argument just to see if they can still win. They're quick, clever, and endlessly curious. Rules? Boundaries? Sacred cows? All fair game to poke holes in. They thrive in chaos, in brainstorming, in tossing out ideas that make everyone else stop and say, wait, could that actually work? The downside? Subtlety is not their specialty. They can steamroll people without realizing it, turning debates into destruction. But when a debater learns to use that energy for innovation instead of just provocation, they're not just entertaining, they're unstoppable. The executive? The executive is order incarnate. Structured, decisive, and commanding, they're the ones who make sure things get done, whether people like it or not. In their world, there's a right way to do things, and wasting time isn't on the list. They're natural organizers, the type who can walk into chaos and leave behind a working system. To them, efficiency isn't optional, it's sacred. That drive makes them reliable leaders, the kind who can keep a team on track when everything else is falling apart. But strength comes with shadows. Executives can be rigid, dismissive of nuance, and impatient with anyone who doesn't keep up. They risk becoming so focused on rules and results that they forget about people. Yet, when they strike the balance, executives don't just maintain order, they build structures that last. The provider. The provider is the friend who remembers to bring snacks, checks if you got home safe, and somehow manages to organize the group chat chaos into an actual plan. They live for connection, for making sure the people around them feel cared for. To them, kindness isn't just nice, it's necessary. They're generous with their time, their energy, and their attention. Providers want harmony, and they'll go out of their way to smooth over conflict before it even starts. But that same generosity can be a trap. They can become so focused on helping others that they forget their own needs. Still, at their best, providers are the glue in any community. They keep relationships strong, make traditions matter, and remind everyone what it feels like to belong. The protagonist. The protagonist walks into a room and people notice, not because they're loud, but because they carry purpose, like a torch. Charismatic, persuasive, and driven, they see potential in people before those people even see it in themselves. They thrive on leadership, not for the power, but for the chance to guide others towards something bigger. Protagonists believe in causes, in missions, in the possibility of changing the world. That passion is magnetic, inspiring others to follow them even when the path isn't clear. The risk? They can burn themselves out trying to save everyone. They may push too hard, convinced they know what's best. But when their passion is paired with humility, protagonists become the kind of leaders who don't just talk about change, they make it happen. The commander doesn't ask if something can be done. They ask who's going to do it, and when it'll be finished. Bold, decisive, and relentless, they're natural leaders who thrive in competition. To them, obstacles are just puzzles waiting to be solved, preferably faster than anyone else. They see inefficiency as the enemy, and they'll bulldoze through excuses without a second thought. That makes them powerful, but also intimidating. Commanders can come off as ruthless, pushing people harder than they push themselves, which is saying something. But here's the thing. They don't drive people out of cruelty. They do it because they see potential and won't accept less than excellence. When tempered with empathy, commanders aren't just leaders. They're visionaries who get results others only dream about. The advocate. The advocate is rare, quiet, but intense. They carry depth like a secret, seeing patterns and truths most people miss. While others skim the surface, advocates dive into meaning, searching for purpose in everything they do. They're compassionate, but not naive, kind, but not weak. When they care about something, it isn't casual. It's consuming. They'll sacrifice comfort, time, even relationships to stay true to their vision of what's right. That integrity is powerful, but it can also be isolating, because advocates often feel like outsiders, misunderstood even by people close to them. But when they find their voice, they don't just speak, they move people. They're the quiet revolutionaries, the visionaries who change the world not by force, but by the sheer gravity of their conviction.